in the early summer of 2020 that I was headed toward a COVID divorce, but that turned out to be the case. So this story sounds like it might be a little sad, and it probably is, as such stories tend to be. My wife confessed to me that she had been flirting with a guy in her fencing class that not only turned out to be soldier on the other side of the political divide, but also was married and his wife was pregnant. So that did not work out too well for her. So we got in therapy, as we should have, and she said, my emotional and sexual needs are just not being met. I kind of said, whose were during COVID? But we were working on it, and we were with this couple of therapists. It was excellent for a couple of months, and it got to the point that he was saying, you guys are not at risk. All the tests we took said we were close to each other. The only thing we had a huge difference on was anxiety. Mine was pretty low. I'd never get sick, and we took a lot of precautions, so I really wasn't worried about COVID. From her perspective, though we've been together for 10 years and had a 4-year-old son, was that since I was now in an at-risk category, being over 65, she got a little bit scared. I think COVID made mortality salient for a lot of people, but particularly in our case, that did. I also think she was terrified of turning into an adulterer. Well, our therapist finally, after a couple of months, says, you guys have great communication skills, you're good problem solvers, you obviously care a lot for each other. And then I said, but there's an elephant in the room. The elephant in the room was my wife, who, despite having preeclampsia, having given birth to our son 6 weeks premature with an emergency C-section, and having been warned by her surgeon friend in Las Vegas that this would maybe put her at risk, decided that her life would not be fulfilled without more children. And I was beyond my expiration date. So she moved out the next day, moved back with her family in Delaware. For 3 months in the summer, we had an amicable split. We were in mediation, trying to work things out. We saw our son pretty often. We had family events. And her mother even said, always feel invited and welcome to any family event. Bring anyone you want, and we'll enjoy it. Well, I went to an event over Labor Day weekend, and it was monumentally uncomfortable. My wife was separated from her husband. Her business was not going well. And Pop had been diagnosed with cancer. But their family had a norm against expressing negative emotion. So by the end of the day, the conversation had become so trivial. We're sitting in front of a kiddie pool in the backyard, and the conversation had devolved to behavioral differences between the 3 dogs. I was so bored I wanted to stick a pencil in my eye. So I escaped with my son, it was my turn, as quickly as I could. Now, before I left, my ex was wearing a very fetching short sundress, newly tie-dyed, and carrying her strappy shoes in her hand. And I said, you got a date? And she said, no, I'm really just not ready to start dating. 2 weeks later, she's late to pick up our son. And she calls him on a video call, and even he says, Mommy, that's not Nana's house. Where are you? At a friend's house. But she didn't have that many friends, and I understood the euphemism. Well, not quite ready to date. Okay, I get it. I'm certainly not either. 2 weeks later, on a pickup of our son, she calls me David. Ooh, not good. In front of our son? She tried to blow it off. I was also bringing her steampunk outfit to go to a Halloween-y event with her friend. The end of the next week, I get an email from her with a video attached. We get the digital era. And I'm curious. It's from Jody, and it's called The Dancers. It's my ex, near-to-be ex, and her boyfriend. He's heavy set, wearing a lot of bling. She's wearing her costume. It's at the Ren Fair, where we'd been with our son the year before and watched him dance, dancing seductively around her boyfriend with lots of PDA. What the fuck? Why would someone do that? Why would someone do that? It was an oops. She thought Jody was my cousin's wife in Pasadena who has 2 daughters. Big oops. But I finally got my mind around it. I said, she's been through all sorts of crap. Her family is so codependent, you can't buy a new yogurt without everyone commenting. She's been through all this stuff. Her father's diagnosis was terminal. Finally, it did my heart good to see her happy, because she hadn't been for a while.